Today, we're going to look at the communication process. Studying and understanding the communication process is very important since it is a core principle in the communication discipline. Regardless of the type of communication engagement we are involved in, the communication process is at work. So what we are going to do here is look at each individual element of the process and provide a brief description of each one. So with that said, let's get started. The first element we'll look at is sender. The sender is the person who is sending the message. In the communication process, this person can start with one individual and switch to another depending on the type of communication that is taking place. So a receiver of a message can become the sender by simply communicating back to the original sender. But in short, the sender is simply the one communicating a message to others. Next, we have encoding. Encoding is a mental process in which we create the basis for a message, and it includes what to say and how to say it. It also includes body language and vocal tones if required. It also would involve determining what channel to use to best convey the message. Encoding, however, takes place before a message is delivered. So first, our minds takes pictures, concepts, and thoughts and encodes those thoughts into a mental message. And this is done by the mind transforming these abstract ideas into a communicatable message. This transformation is done using words, symbols, pictures, and sounds, as well as how those words will be strung together into sentences and phrases, and how they will be delivered, be it quietly or forcefully. The mental message is then encoded a second time to the actual message, whether it be spoken, written, or simply body language. Our next element is frames of reference. Now, frames of reference refers to the way a person perceives the world and their surroundings. It is a particular set of values, beliefs, or ideas on which they base their judgment of things. So, frames of reference are formed from influences such as parents, teachers, life experiences, culture and customs, geographical location, religion, education, and the media, just to name a few. Because of this, each individual's views of the world come from a frame of reference that is unique and personal to them. This is why it is extremely important to understand and be mindful of other people's frames of reference so that when we encode a message, it can be better understood. The next element that we want to look at is noise. So noise is the term given to anything that disrupts the communication. In other words, it is anything that prevents the intended receiver from receiving the message in the way the sender intended it to. So there are 4 specific types of noise that we encounter. The first one is called physical noise. And this is the most common noise because it's literal noise. And this makes it very difficult for people involved in conversation to hear what the other person is saying. So examples of this noise could be things such as a lot of people talking at once in a small meeting room, or phones ringing in the office, or people talking within earshot of where you are, or dishes clanging in a restaurant. Physical noise can also include outside noise. And when we say outside noise, we are referring to noise that is coming from somewhere outside your specific environment. So examples could include construction workers digging up the road outside your office, or an ambulance driving by with a siren on, someone mowing the grass, a dog barking. This kind of noise can be distracting during a very important conversation. The second type of noise is physiological noise. Now, this noise refers to you personally. A few examples might be you have a headache, or the medication that you're taking is affecting your ability to listen, or any physical ailment or pain. It can also refer to permanent physical disabilities, such as being hearing impaired. The third type of noise is psychological noise. Now, this noise refers to internal thoughts, attitudes, and preconceived notions that affect how we focus, listen to, and interpret messages. Examples of this type of noise would include both negative and positive thoughts. You got into an argument with your husband, wife, or significant other before leaving for work. You're worried that the current layoffs may affect you. You have a certain dislike or distrust of a person you are communicating to, or you perceive that the person you're communicating to doesn't like or distrust you. Now, on a positive note, hey, you just got news, your wife went into labor, or you just got a promotion and a big raise, or you're leaving for vacation tomorrow, or perhaps the person that you had been hoping would ask you out finally did. Our final type of noise is semantic noise. Now, semantic noise refers to differences in understanding words that are used in the communication interaction. This could be caused by using technical industry information or jargon that isn't understood by the person or people in the conversation. Language barriers can also cause semantic noise, such as someone speaking broken English, or perhaps you speaking broken Spanish or German. Cultural differences can cause this noise as well. For example, how words or nonverbal cues are used. Looking at someone in the eye when speaking might be fine in the U.S., but in other parts of the world, this is seen as disrespectful. Geographical differences can also bring about this specific type of noise. For example, in the Midwest, many people will use the phrase "red up." If you are from the Midwest, you may understand what that term means. It means to clean up or tidy up. Go get your room red up. Others may not have a clue what you're saying. This would be a semantic noise. All these elements we just discussed can affect the way we encode a message. They frame the way we see the world, and that frame will influence how we put together and present our messages. Now we come to the element called channel. You've been mindful of both your and the receiver's frames of reference. You have worked through the noise, and you have your message. Now the encoded message must be delivered to its audience via a message channel. A message channel is the term that refers to the specific medium that will carry the message from the sender to the receiver. Channels could include face-to-face interaction, a phone call, text message, a letter, email. It could be a mass advertising campaign that shows up in TV, print, or social media. Video conferencing, or body language, or other nonverbal expressions. When it comes to our channel, another thing that must be considered has to do with codes. Each channel will have one or more codes. Now, the codes we're talking about are vocal, verbal, and visual codes. So, simply stated, the vocal code refers to all the qualities of our voice that accompanies the content or the words spoken. This can include pitch, rate, variation in pitch, accent, volume, articulation, etc. It is not what we say, but how we say it. Then we have verbal code. This simply refers to the words that are being used, and these words can be spoken or written. Finally, we have visual code. This refers to nonverbal interaction, body language, facial expressions. These are cues that we can see and therefore interpret. These codes are part of evaluating what is called the media richness of our communication. Now, media richness was originally developed by Daff and Lengel in 1988. And speaking of media richness, they said that it is the ability of information to change understanding within a time interval. All right, so communications that can overcome different frames of references and clarify ambiguous issues to promote understanding in a timely manner are considered more rich. Communication that takes a longer time to convey understanding are considered less rich. And according to Daff and Lengel, the richer the media, the more effective, and the less rich or lean the media is, the less effective it will be. So face-to-face is considered one of the highest forms in terms of media richness. It contains all three channel codes, whereas channels restricted to only written communication, especially written forms such as bulk mail or junk mail, are low on the media richness scale. This is also true that the more important the message is, the higher the channel needs to be in media richness. Therefore, all three codes should be present when conveying an important message. The lesser the importance, the less rich the channel needs to be. These are general rules, but they are effective when choosing a channel. Now we come to the receiver. The receiver is the person to whom the sender is directing their message. Once he receives the message, we enter into the element of decoding. And decoding begins once the message has been received. The receiver must be able to extract the meaning of the message from the words, phrases, vocal and visual cues, etc., that the message contains. Receivers can usually interpret the message without any complicated processing as long as the message has a common meaning between sender and receiver. So this is accomplished by the sender being mindful of the receiver's frames of reference and any knowable noise that they may be dealing with. If that's not the case, then properly decoding the message and experiencing shared meaning becomes much more difficult, if not impossible. This is why everything that we said concerning the sender encoding a message and how their frames of references and noise affects that message, the same is true for the receiver when he decodes his message. Now we come to our next element of discussion, which is environment. Environment refers to the context in which the communication interaction is taking place. For example, how would a communication event play out differently if the environment was a library as compared to a park bench, as compared to a sporting event? While the elements of the communication process are always in play, the environment may increase or decrease the interplay of the various elements within the process. Sometimes our receptivity to a message can be affected by the environment as well. For example, you walk into a room where you are attending a seminar. The lights are bright. There are folding tables set up around the room with folding chairs. In the corner is a container filled with bottled water. What impression does such an environment give you? Does it reflect on the speaker or her credibility? Now, let's try this again. This time you walk in and the lights are dimmed. There are conference-like tables set up with white tablecloths on them. Each table is accompanied with cushioned chairs. There are clear glass goblets with ice and pitchers of water on every table. How does this affect your opinion of the event, the speaker, and his credibility? Every environment not only affects the way the elements of the communication process interact, but they can also affect our judgment on credibility. Now we come to the element of feedback. Feedback is one of the most important elements of the communication process. For feedback is the receiver's response to the interpreted message, and it informs the sender if the message was properly decoded or if modification is required. Feedback can be verbal or nonverbal. And without feedback, we, meaning the senders, are flying blind, if you will. It is the only way we can know for sure if the message was properly received. So if you are unsure if your message was received and the proper meaning obtained, and you aren't getting anything from the person or audience to whom you're speaking, then you need to seek out feedback. Ask questions, because without feedback, you will not know if the proper meaning was extracted from the message you sent. So there you have it. It's important to understand the communication process and be aware of all the elements involved if being a successful communicator is the goal. While it is true you cannot not communicate, you do have a choice if you will be a successful communicator. And that starts with becoming intimately aware of the communication process and how each element can affect other elements in the process. Thanks for listening, and take care.